A teraz czas na najważniejsze pytania do doktora Bruszta, cenionego doradcy wielu rządów i instytucji na całym świecie. Jaka będzie przyszłość? Co przede wszystkim będzie wpływać na gospodarki takich państw jak Polska i Węgry i jak przekładają się na to szwedzkie doświadczenia? Szczególnie w kontekście globalizacji, zmian klimatycznych i przede wszystkim migracji.
It is a very speculative issue, but what is happening today is to a certain extent determining what is happening in the future. Certain things in the structures of this country, of course, determining what kind of process is possible or not possible. There are a number of factors which are going to influence what is happening in the future. Political factors, of course, will be very, very important. But in all these three countries, somehow politics has been kept somewhat separate from economics. And I am not talking so much about the economy, which is actually generated by the state or is used by the state, which is, of course, totally depending on the political structures. But I am talking about generally about the economy of our country, particularly the private economy of the country, which is not very much influenced by the political movements, left or right or centrist or whatever. I believe that what is going to happen in the economy is that we, of course, going to be influenced still by the continued globalization. Even if there is an opposition against globalization in many countries, and particularly in such a country as Sweden, there are certain forces which are very, very strong and will keep the globalization and the global economy alive and very, very influential to all these three economies. So we are going to see more of the international trade, more of the international influence in the economy of these countries. Now, the other thing which is influencing very much is, of course, the development of the AI, the artificial intelligence. The artificial intelligence is going to influence very many sectors of the economy, and unfortunately, it is going to be a problem of the people who actually will be left behind. So we are going to experience a larger amount of unemployment and a bigger dependence of people on the different kind of contribution by the community and the state. I don't think it's a very healthy development. I am a little afraid that it will also lead to certain political extremism, which is not going to maybe influence too much of the economy, but would influence people's life and even the everyday life of the people if we get extreme political pressure. I mean, it has always been so that when you are getting a kind of instable society in terms of employment, in terms of differences of economical wealth, which is going to happen in our societies, then it would be also instability in politics, and extreme politics will actually gain terrain. And this has been already seen, of course, in Hungary, in Poland, and in Sweden as well. Another thing in Sweden, which is actually different from both Hungary and from Poland, is that we have, during the last 20-25 years, got a tremendous different demographic structure. The demographic structure in Sweden has changed so much but a few percentage of the non-Swedish inhabitants of the country is now up to 25 to 30%. Now, the definition can be varied, which are Swedes or not Swedes. But according to the Swedish statistics, a person who is actually born outside of the country, or if both of the parents are born outside of the country, is actually counted as a non-Swedish. And these are actually a very large number. Now, it is not a big problem. The problem in Sweden is that a very large part of these numbers are coming during the last 15 years and coming from cultures, so-called non-European cultures, particularly from the Middle East and from Africa. Now, this means that they are also bringing a completely different habits, completely different behaviors, and unfortunately, the earlier policy of Sweden has been a kind of idea of multiculturalism. Multiculturalism meant that cultures of very different kind could actually exist together in a harmony, in a society side by side. That is not anymore the possibility. And the policy has changed, of course, but it is absolutely necessary that the people who are joining the country are accepting and adjusting themselves to certain conditions of the Swedish culture, Swedish behavior, and the Swedish standards of values, etc. If it is not happening, we get a very diversified society with a very difficult type of behavior and problems, which we have today in Sweden. And this is actually going to influence how Sweden is going to develop in the future. One has to also see another side of the immigration. In a country as Sweden, is almost a necessity. Why? Because if you are looking at how actually are different kind of social services, there's elderly care or simple hospital services or collective transportation. Everything is actually manned by immigrants. Sweden would not work, would not function as a country if we didn't have our immigrants. This is very simple. So both sides are very important to actually handle, and we are not very good in handling this kind of discrepancies and problems. There are a number of different ideas and number of different political initiatives in order to deal with this, but unfortunately nothing is happening, and our future is therefore very, I would say, instable. The situation in Poland is somewhat different, because the major impact in the Polish demography is coming now from the last few years through the Ukrainian crisis. By number of Ukrainians who actually coming as refugees from Ukraine, but of course, many of them establishing themselves and will stay also in the future. According to news, it has been an issue of 1 million people, which is, of course, influencing the society. The Ukrainian people, maybe somewhat, different from the Polish people, from the cultural points of view. But in many ways also there are similarities between Ukrainian people and the Polish people. There are the similarities in religion, there are the similarities of history, there are other things which actually making that a little easier to handle this kind of problems from cultural and economical point of view. And I think that Poland is, to some extent, is in the same situation as Sweden, as more and more people is needed who actually taking up different kind of services which a Polish numbers are not actually can provide.